Hi, guys. Welcome back. Hope you enjoyed your week off. I didn't enjoy the reason we had a week off. I'll tell you that. I'm officially sick of snow. All right. So we're missing one. See what happens here. Also, I was looking for something that would let me adjust my webcam. Um, there's no, Zoom control on it. There's no color adjustment or anything like that. So I found something, and I haven't played with it a whole lot, but it does exactly what I want it to do. It allows me to, change brightness and things like that. I don't know how well it works with Zoom because it doesn't mention Zoom. So I don't know if you'll even see um, anything that I change. Do you see a difference? So it probably has about 50 of these different stupid little things. I did find a couple of them that I thought were pretty cool, though. Um, Trying to find one right now. That's called X-ray thermal camera. Oh, this one was funny. Oh, ah! Just a whole bunch of weird stuff. Anyway, it did let me do what I wanted it to, adjust the white balance, zoom in, and things like that. But it also has these other things which were just fun to play with. Okay, so it looks like we're. Oh, there she is. I was gonna say we were missing one. Let her get signed in here. And now we are complete. Everybody's here. All right. And Taylor, I did not, even though we were, if you're there, we're a couple weeks out from our last class. I did not get an assignment from you for this class. If you sent it, let me know because I did not receive it. You can still get credit for it if you did. But we're gonna.
I don't think I sent it.
Yeah, if you have it, go ahead and send it. If you don't have it, you can do it later and still get credit for it. So don't worry about it.
Okay, thank you.
It's just that obviously what we have during class is what we can critique. And right now, my email doesn't even seem to want to work. Let me try to restart that. Something weird happened yesterday. I was in the middle of a board meeting, and I have my laptop, which I need for additional things here to my side. And even though my internet was on and working, I could not even load a web page in here. So I don't know what's going on. And now my email is a little like it won't even open. I don't know. Some black hole has enveloped this room, I think. I don't know. We'll figure it out. All right. So, first things first, we're going to go through and look at your assignments and talk about those. And then we'll move into the next part of the class, which is one topic, but sort of two little offshoots of those topics, one of which is very creative and a lot of fun to play with. And that's what the assignment will be for next week. But again, we're trying to do as many of these little Photoshop things or whatever that we can get into before, since we're not meeting face to face right now. I'm kind of pushing all of the hands-on lighting that we were planning to do back as far as I can, hoping that we are going to get together within a few, maybe a month or so, and go from there. Has anybody, well, you probably haven't with your, I don't know. I'm not sure how they're handling vaccinations up there. I had my first shot on Monday. Has anybody else had one yet? No. Yeah, I think they're starting with faculty, obviously, because we're old and they don't want us to die. So they're going to start there. And of course, they probably care more about you dying than us, because we don't pay them, they pay us. they want to keep you guys around, but it's all age-based. First shot was nothing. I had literally a little soreness in my arm for, starting the next day and for a couple of days, but almost wasn't even noticeable. The next one, I'll probably be curled into the fetal position for 3 days after that shot. We'll see how it goes. That's 28 days away. All right, so let me get into Bridge. We'll take a look at your images. There we go. And we got a couple loose ones, so we'll look at those first. Well, what did I just do with my... Okay, something happened to my images. When I move, just curious, because I watched a little bit of one of the recordings. When I move the window that has your thumbnails in it, where it has your webcams, that doesn't move on your screen, does it? Everybody's still muted, so I didn't hear anything.
Like, do you mean how like you slide the yeah, you can move it around.
Like you're seeing me move it right now? Because I didn't notice that in the recordings. I knew I had changed the view a couple of times and I wasn't seeing that in recordings. So I just wanted, the reason I'm asking is that I move it sometimes so that I can see the image on screen, and I want you to be able to see the image on screen, but I don't know that that's actually doing anything. It's a weird, Zoom works very weirdly in a few ways. I have a couple of things that I normally use that like will highlight things on screen or zoom into them or darken everything except a small circle, but that does not work in Zoom. Like I can see it, but you can't. So it's just weird, and I'm just trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So if you ever can't see something because there's a window in the way, just let me know. Okay, so let's go. I'm going to take the, we'll look at the loose images first. This is Haley's. So the first thing I noticed on this that I really like is the fact that you did the background item here. Oh, she's gone. or are you still there? Am I just not seeing you?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, she's there. Okay. So for some reason your thumbnail disappeared. Now I've got you back. Okay. So what I really like that you did here is that you worked on this bush, shrub, tree, whatever it is that's in the background, but you left the foreground alone, like which probably was kind of difficult to do. You probably had to go in. Did you just stay away from those areas, or did you use the freeze tool in the Liquify dialog? How did you do that? Because it looks like you used the twirl filter.
I probably should have used the freeze tool now that I like kind of looked at it again, because it looks like there's a couple right below that one part, like the middle part. And I think if I used the freeze tool, it wouldn't have looked like that. But yeah, I just tried to stay away from that area.
Yeah, and it looks like mostly it's a twirl. So yeah, it was a good job to consciously stay away from that. Because that would have completely changed the look and probably not in a good way. I also am curious about if this is just a color balance thing, but the red lights on the tree trunks, is that just sunlight that has, we have an odd color balance going on, or was there
there was like a sunset, and that was like the shading or whatever, and I kind of messed with like the contrast, and it just ended up looking extra bright.
No, it's fine. I was just hope that there was not an ambulance parked outside your place. That's kind of what it looks like, is the red lights off an ambulance. But other than that, like I said, I like the idea. There is one problem with the image, and I'll Generally, I reach out to the class to see if they see it first. One issue that I would have changed. Anybody see something? If you're not sure, if you're not seeing it, squint at the image and see if anything pops out.
Is it like the bright light in the bottom?
That space, that dirt spot over there?
No, Beth got it. It's down in the lower right-hand pane here, this reflection. It is probably the brightest thing in the image, and it doesn't really, add anything. It's actually more of a distraction. So that probably would have been something to just, take the clone tool and just obliterate that and get rid of that. We haven't really, I mean, I know the clone tool is a pretty simple tool to use, but I don't know how much. You're breaking up, Haley, and we're not quite getting you here.
Are you talking about the brights?
Yeah, right. If you can see my cursor.
Or are you talking about the bright spot that's on the left?
The bottom right. See where my cursor is circling?
Yeah, that's not a reflection. That's not a reflection. That's the screen. The screen was torn by that window.
Okay. Yeah,
Right
okay.
there.
So even still, I mean, we didn't, the viewer wouldn't know exactly what that is. It does, it would have been an odd reflection, but it could have been a reflection. But now I do see the torn screen. I think I probably still would recommend on this image to get rid of that. I'm going to open that up. Whoops. Yeah, I'm just going to open that for a second and just see how easy that would have been or hard. All right. Are you seeing that now in Photoshop? So it probably is going to be pretty easy. I'm just going to take a brush, 100% opacity, go somewhere nearby there and just really probably have to sample from more than one area, but literally 2 brush strokes, well, 3 if you take out what I messed up. And then suddenly we have a completely different image. If we go back and forth, and you see it both ways, now I think, it's a lot easier to see that it's a little bit distracting. So let me stop sharing that. Get back to Bridge. Don't save that. Okay. So with any image, it's a really good idea when you've got it where you think it's finished to do that little test, that squint test, and literally just squint at it. And if there's any area of contrast that's either bright or dark that really is a distraction, it'll pop out to you. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to flip the image upside down, which is easier than you standing on your head. But when you see it that way, your brain is forced to see things a little more compositionally, I guess is the word. And it eliminates the familiarity that we have with the image and forces us to see it in a different way. So either one of those 2 methods works. And it's something that I do. I mean, I used to do it with every image. Now I've just sort of gotten to the point where I can see that stuff without doing it, which is a bonus. It's where you want to get to so that you don't have to do that all the time. But there's a lot of things in most images. There's always something that you can look at and go, oh, it would be better without that, or it would be better with something added or whatever. And that's just an easy way to do it. But other than that, I love what you did. I kind of like the fact that even though it may not have been intentional, I kind of like the fact that the window is not perfectly square. Like you're not looking directly with a perfectly square image. It has a little bit of an angle to it. But the fact that you consciously kept the window panes in, or the cross pieces intact, and just worked on the background, I do like that. And the color in it is kind of interesting too. The ultraviolet in the light coming through in the snow against the warm colors on the tree trunks. Pretty cool. So I like that one. And I need to make a folder here.
Thanks.
And let's put that in there. All right, the other loose image was Chris's, and this one is really cool. Like, this is not just, it's not just a good use of the technique, which is really very detailed, very well done. I'd love to see the original of this, because the other thing that it has is that when you use a technique, when you use any technique on a file, you want to make sure that you've got a good image to start with, because it's pretty much garbage in, garbage out. Like, if you take a really crappy image and you throw a bunch of filters and stuff like that, you still have a crappy image just with a bunch of filters on it. And it's easy for anybody with a half an eye to be able to see that. This is a good image to start with. I think it's very moody. Like I said, I would like to see how much of a change was made from the original, but tell me what we've got here for, what's your light source?
That candle.
Oh, that is a candle. Okay. And I wasn't sure if that was,
It's black besides that.
Gotcha. I wasn't sure if that was the case or if there was a light, off, but it does look like the way the glass is lit that the light's coming from inside. So that is pretty interesting. Let me look and see if there's metadata. So yeah, there is a little bit. So it's basically an iPhone shot that you were able to.
Yeah, I kind of double dipped on assignments, to be honest with you. I literally had to do this assignment. It was due the same day that your assignment was due. And they were both kind of similar. So that's what happened. I went really hard on this one image.
Well, it worked. I'm curious about a couple of things. The light source was one. The other one on the right side of the image, there is some texture. There's some, I'm not sure what it is that I'm seeing or what it was originally, but most of your adjustments flow horizontally, and then we've got these vertical, this vertical texture on the right. What is that?
I just think that to put it into a word, I think it looks grungy. Like, I think that, like, if you printed this, it would almost look like the picture's damaged. You know what I mean?
Like almost torn.
Yeah, like, or how sometimes you see paintings get the.
Oh yeah, the paint starts to come up off the canvas.
And that was just kind of, and I kind of like the scratch on the side. You can't really see my face. It, like I said, it does look grungy. It looks like kind of sinister. And what happened is I started doing all these little details, and I started like just going with it. I might have did it a little bit too much, but I'm happy with it.
Yeah, I don't think you did. I think for what you started with, an iPhone shot with a single light source being a candle, this is pretty incredible, and the work is very detailed. I can see that there, it's not just the liquefy technique that we talked about. What else did you do? Because the lines that are in there are not, we've got some streaking going on. So I'm just curious as to what you did.
So what I did was, is I oil paint filter on it. And I put that, I didn't overdo it because if you overdo it, then I wouldn't be able to do it. I just make them is defined. So I put it at like a low, like, I don't know, I can't think of the word, but I didn't put the filter on it that much. And from that, I kind of use that as a template. You're like, okay, I kind of like the way that looks like up on my cheek. So like, I'm going to pull it down, and especially in the dark, I had a lot more fun with the dark side of my face and doing that. Like, you can see some of the strokes go down like my eyebrow and try to like go into my nose.
So you lowered the opacity of that original filter is what you did.
That's the word I'm looking for.
Gotcha. Yeah, so what you just said as far as doing two different techniques, that's again a reason that I think it probably stands out a little bit. Typically, when I see a really good technique, applied to an image, it's never a single technique. It's usually a combination of things, or it's like you said, one of them is a little more subtle than the other. And it's sort of like, what the reason, and I don't know that any of you even did this, but the second step that we did in class was adding that plastic wrap filter. And I'm not sure that any of you did that, but that's kind of the idea, was a little bit of a second step, and then pull back on it a little bit just to give it not so recognizable a look, so that you can't look at it and go, oh, I know what you did. You just used this filter and, you were done with it. So, this was obviously a little more work involved, and I really kind of dig it. I don't even mind, like initially, I didn't even notice the fact that we really only see one eye. And normally that'd be something I'd look at and go, oh, I probably would have left a little bit of that eye, but I really don't. I mean, I think that the light gradation across your face is normal. It's natural. If this had been normally just a regular exposed photograph, you might not have seen that eye anyway. It might have been in total shadow. So just a lot of things really well done. I can't honestly look at this and make any suggestion to you about what you could have done better, because I think you nailed it. I think this is exactly, I'm seeing detail away from you in some of the shadow areas, but not all the way to the corner. So it has that vignette appearance to it. Whether you used a vignette or not, I'm not sure, but you did.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and that's very helpful. I think it definitely draws attention back to the center rather than letting all that go. But I do see some detail off of you and then fading as it goes to the corners. So yeah, I can't say enough about it. It was just extremely well done.
Thank you.
Probably my favorite one of the week so far. We've looked at two, but I like the first one too. So this one just went a little bit beyond, and that's what I was kind of looking for. All right, let's move on. Beth, so this is her original image. I'm sure you all recognize what that is. It is the state penitentiary in Moundsville. I would say, I think your original, oh, excuse me, I'm still trying to wake up here. I tried to take a nap this afternoon and my dog would not let me. And so I'm paying for it. Let me look quickly here. ISO 100, 250, that's 7.1. I think your original exposures may be a little bit underexposed, but I think the technique kind of brought that back like a little bit, like it didn't hurt you. I will say that, and I want to look at your other ones first. I want to see, you may have done something. Oh, you did use the plastic wrap filter. Okay. So you took it all the way through. And I see one other thing. That was just the PSD. I did not open that file. Let me open that and just see if there's anything there. All right. So we've got the background. We've got that. You did a bunch of stuff there that I'm not really following, but it's not important. In this case, it's just the final image that is important. So what I like is when I go to the original, back and forth from here to the original, I see that you recognize that you were a little crooked, that the image is a little bit left to right downhill. You corrected that in the final one. And then the fact that, so the plastic wrap part of it actually helps to bring the exposure back up a little bit. But the fact that it is a little underexposed actually makes it look a little more demonic. Or a little more, not necessarily demonic, but a little dark and moody and foreboding. It also keeps the blue sky really deep. I might have even played with darkening that a little bit more, but it still works the way it is. But I like how you, as I look around the image and not just the center of the image, I see, how you affected certain areas of it. Down low near the gate and so forth, the little pillars off the gate and all of that. So there's a little bit of work done here. not that, we're looking for degree of difficulty. It's really in this case, it was more about the overall image, but I like the way it came out. I like the fact that you recognized before I pointed them out that there was an issue or two and found a way to deal with that. So that's very encouraging. I like that a lot. Boy, I'm trying to think if I do see a weird, and I saw it on the PSD file. There's a shape. Actually, maybe I should go in and open that. Excuse me. And you can, everybody else can see it, and you can tell me what it is that I'm seeing, because I'm a little confused. I think we're out of sharing. All right, so let's get back into that. All right, so it's this layer 1 right here that has this. I'm not sure what that is. Let me go back to your original. So that's the original image. Then there's this, it looks like the liquefy and the plastic wrap are combined into one layer, but then there's this layer above that with a brightness and contrast adjustment layer that's darkening it. I'm not sure what did you just feel that, did you just think that the center of the image was too bright?
Yeah, so I put the plastic wrap on it and it looks really, really bright. So I tried to just get all of it at once and try to darken it a little bit, see if it helps. I was like, it helped a little bit, I guess. So
I'm going to add the other. So I like the fact that you did that, because you're right. It was a little too bright in the center, but I noticed it because I could actually see the edges defined in that, selection or whatever it is, however you did that. I'm wondering if, I don't know if I can change this after the fact. Let me try something. It probably would have had to have been done ahead of time, but I'm going to try. Yeah, that definitely is not what we wanted. Let's knock that down. Yeah, no matter what I do with a blur, it's going to blur the image itself, and I really only wanted to blur the edges. So how did you do it? Did you just like make a selection and bump that to a new layer?
Yeah, that's just what I did. I just selected it all, put it on a new layer, and just tried to adjust it a little bit so it looked kind of better.
So the only thing I would have done then is when you made your selection, when you do that in Photoshop, regardless of what selection tool you use, like I've got the lasso tool selected right now. And if you look up in the options bar here, there's a feather field. Have you ever played with that feather field at all?
No.
Okay, so let me show you what it does. And I'm going to go back. I'm going to go all the way back to your original image. So if I make a selection around this and I hit Command J to bump that to a new layer, so this is what I have on that layer. But I'm going to go back and start over. When I make that selection, if I increase the feather, and actually probably going to take it up a good bit here. Let's see if that made a difference. Okay, the feather must have to be in place before you make the selection. So I'm gonna have the feather, let's just put it up to about 50 pixels. And I'm going to make my selection again. I'm going to bump that to a new layer. And now you'll see the difference. You see how soft the edges are as opposed to sharp. So any selection tool, when you make the selection, feathering just sort of blurs the edges more than anything else. And it would have made that blend in a lot more, even more so than you're seeing here. And of course, it depends on how much you feather that. Let me really take it up. Let's take it up to about 100. Turn the background layer back on. Bump that up. And now you can even see a little more how that, it's just blurred. It just gradually transitions from where we made the selection to on both sides of that selection. It kind of fades it out. So it would have made that blend in a little bit better. That's just something to be aware of. As I look at the finished image, it doesn't stand out to me like it's not a glaring thing. But if I look at it closely, I do see, especially on the right edge of that, maybe it would have helped to just include a little more of that right side of the building, but that's just a cool way to make that adjustment and do it. And I'll show you, there's another thing that I use it for. So let's say I wanted to put a vignette on this. Well, I normally would just hit a button and do that, but let me show you the longhand method. All right, so we're just going to move this selection up, just an oval selection around the outside. There we go. Then I would add I'm sorry, I would invert that selection so that instead of the center selected, it's the outside selected. Then I'm going to add a levels adjustment layer. I'm going to darken that down. But you see, because I didn't feather that selection, it's very hard edge. But the cool thing about doing this type of an effect is that you don't have to do it before the fact. In fact, you can get a really good idea for how it's going to work by not doing it ahead of time. This levels adjustment that you see at the top of the layers stack here is nothing more than an adjustment layer with a layer mask. And the layer mask is highlighted, it's targeted. You can tell by which side of this has the little square around it. So while that's targeted, I can then go into the blur filter, like the Gaussian blur filter. And as I drag my slider left and right, can you see how that's changing? So it's really cool to be able to do that after the fact. So the action that I have, which is an automated, just a button that I push to do this, I know the resolution of my files. This blur is based on the size and the resolution of your file. So if you have a much higher resolution file, you'd need a larger blur to make this happen. So since all of my camera files are the same, I know what that resolution is. So I've written an action to automatically put, I think it's a 250, I think mine is a 250 pixel blur. It's going to be a little strong for this image. No, it still works on that as well. And then the last step is to put that in luminosity mode so it doesn't change the color values. But anyway, again, we're getting off topic a little bit, but I wanted to, this is something I might not have an opportunity to talk about later. And I wanted you to be aware that all of the selection tools have a feather command. And some of them, depending on how they're used, if they create, in your case, you created an actual layer of pixels. So you can't blur that after the fact. But if you have an adjustment layer, then you can blur that after the fact, and it works really well. All right, let's get out of this. And let's get back to Bridge. All right, so overall, good subject matter for doing this too, and a pretty good use of the technique. I love the fact that it's almost a very monochromatic image. We've got the neutral tones in the building and then the blue again from the sky and the ultraviolet and the snow, and that's pretty much it. And like I said, I like the fact that you straightened it up. That was, as I looked at your original image, my first thing was like, oh no, it's like, and then I went and saw the finished image and thought, oh, she got it. No problem. So good job. All right, let's go on. Eva's up next. This is her original, and that is the finished one. So a couple things that you did that I like. You added a bit more color, and I'm not sure if that was a selective thing. If it was, there's a couple of ways you could have done that. I'm not sure how you did it, but how did you alter the color in the image?
At the end, I went into the ambiance. Was that the filter?
I'm not sure.
Hue saturation.
Hue and saturation, yeah. And just played with the sliders a little bit.
Played with that slider, yeah.
So I think, and again, you did the same thing that Beth did. You started with an original that was a little bit skewed, a little bit off, and corrected that. Yay, I'm so happy that you guys are seeing this stuff. It is a huge, I mean, it may seem like a small thing, but it really is in the eye of a viewer who looks at something. They don't, the uninitiated viewer, the uneducated viewer, won't look at an image and go, oh, that's a little crooked. They'll just look at it and go, something's a little off, and they don't know what it is. But when you straighten that up, it has this look of professionalism, like, you know, and you've got a very symmetrical image here, regardless of the fact that the flowers in the front aren't, you know, equal side to side. Doesn't matter. The image itself is symmetrical. The cropping is done well. You know, we have the part of that window touching a little bit on the left side, not on the right, but these are really minor things. I just like what you did with it. It's a little bit, you know, for my taste, I tend to work with smaller brush strokes, but I see that you kind of did that in the flowers. You did bigger brush strokes, it looks like, in the building, and smaller ones in the flowers. And that's appropriate. That's whenever you're using this tool, you do want to pay attention to what it is that you're working on and adjust that appropriately. So I really liked what you did. I like the way the flowers now, yeah, the greenery in the flowers is mirrored in now the green tones of the house. The yellow of the flowers is contrasting with the purple tones in the window. So color-wise and color harmony, you kind of brought that back into a place where it's better than what the original was. And then it's got this, you know, electrified look to it that that's kind of cool. And again, most people probably would think, oh, they threw a filter on that, and it's not. It's a little more work than that. So good job on it. Happy with that. Actually, I was happy with all of them this week. Jaden, I think you may have sent the wrong image for one of these, because this one, I'm not seeing any change from, unless I'm missing something very subtle, I'm not seeing any difference between the original and the one on the right. Well, actually, the one on the right is the original, and the one on the left says Liquid Faces. So is it the wrong file, or am I missing something?
I think I just made the changes too subtle.
Okay, so let me take that Liquid one, and I'm just going to open it and zoom it in and see what I can see. Yeah, I'm just not really seeing it, because it says Liquid Faces. So I'm looking at the faces, but I'm not seeing anything. I don't know. I'm just not, oops, sorry. Let me get back at the bridge here. Yeah, I mean, if you did, it's really subtle because I literally don't see anything. So we'll kind of disregard that one, and we'll look at the others. Now this one, this is a bit of a different technique that you use. I don't know that I would have done it the way you did, but it definitely is different. That elongation of this butterfly, and then again, leaving, it almost looks pasted on here because of the way this is done, but it's definitely a different look at that filter. Let me put it side by side with the original. I think you could have done a lot of things with this, especially because you know, that butterfly's got a lot of contrast areas in it, but being that it's a creative technique, I can't really knock it. I can't say, well, you should have done this and you should have done that, because it's a creative decision that you make. It is different. It is unusual. I don't recognize that anymore as a butterfly, which is okay. It may not be my cup of tea, but I have to applaud the fact that you use the filter in a little bit of a different way than I would have. So, and then the other image is a little more traditional. So that's your original. And again, good choice of subject on this, because if I had seen this one, I'd have been like, oh yeah, that's a cool shot to do that on. I love the peacock itself. I think, like what Eva did, I probably would have been, I would have gone a little smaller or less in the sidewalk and in the greenery and the vegetation, and really let the peacock stand out more by being the thing that was done the most. But again, it's a creative thing. It's, you know, there is no right or wrong. even though I'd like to have seen it the other way, I can't really knock what it is, because you definitely did what you were supposed to do. I'm just looking through here to see. Let me go back to your original. I'll try to get back to the original. Okay, so I wanted to see what it was that I was seeing in the background. So there's actually a road, it looks like, through the trees there. Yeah, nothing that nothing that I'm going to point at and say you didn't do it right, because you did. It looks like, yeah, you just had fun with the filter. Moved a lot of stuff around, and that's really what it's designed to do. So I think for me, I do like the peacock better than the butterfly, but that's just a personal thing, probably based on what the original is. Is this did you take the original, by the way?
Yeah.
It's a good shot. I think I think I would crop this in to get rid of as much of that shadow in the lower left hand or lower right hand corner as possible. But I really like the fact that this thing is set off on against some really interesting texture, and it's lit from a very low oblique angle, which creates those harsh shadows, which is kind of cool. It's a really interesting image. I think this would be fun to play with for a lot of reasons in a lot of different ways. But I like your peacock. I think subject matter was really good for that. Like I said, I might have pulled back a little bit on the technique, but that's just a personal thing. It has nothing to do with doing it right or doing it wrong. So good job. And Alana is last. And so I always like this building downtown. I thought this is a kind of an interesting building to play with. And so at first, when I saw the image, I thought, it looked, again, almost electrified to me, but I thought, oh, wow, maybe that's a little too strong. But then, because it's a popcorn place, and I looked at the title that you gave the image, which is Melted Butter, it makes perfect sense. Looks like it's about 850 degrees, and the building is actually just melting. But you left the sign alone over it, so you can still see what you've got. And even though you messed with the awning, we can still read the address. So again, this is a case. And the other thing was cropping it in tight and straightening it up. Like that's another. You may not have had to straighten it up just by cropping. It might have helped, but it had that little bit of a lean backwards originally, and cropping it in has taken that out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that because of the concept, because of the idea of what you started with, what it was, and the title gave it to me. It told me what it was that you were going for, what it was you were looking for, and it made perfect sense. So again, we've got an image that is in color contrast with the reds and the yellows. It's far, far better, even exposure-wise, than the original capture was. Just well done. Like, I don't have any complaints on this one at all. I do see a little bit of the plastic wrap, it looks like, that you used in there. Again, it's not overdone, but it's there, and it does, that filter, that part of it actually goes a long way, I think, towards making it look more melted, especially in the upper part that I'm looking at. Yeah, pretty well done. Anything about it you want to tell us about that I'm missing?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
Well, like I said, it was a simple idea, but carried off pretty well. All right, so let's get into looking at the 6 that we have. Oops, somehow I got that in there. I don't want that in there.
Hey, I finished mine. I don't know if you want to see it this class or next class.
If you, let me hang on one second and see if I can, if you want to email that to me, go ahead and do that, and we'll take a look at it while I'm looking to see whose image I missed. I missed Chris's.
Okay.
Yeah, there's the 5. And yeah. So before we vote, we should have all 7 to vote on. I tell you what, it's a little early. We're only 45 minutes in, but since she's going to email those files to me and we'll look at them, it might take a minute to get them transferred over and everything. Why don't we go ahead and take a little 15-minute break here? That'll give me time to get those loaded in, and we'll come back and look at hers, vote on the winner, and then we'll move into the second part of the class. Sound like a plan? All right, let me stop sharing that, and we'll be back right at 5 o'clock. Taylor, if you're there, I got 2 emails from you. The one had the actual file attached. The other one had a zip file. I'm having trouble getting that. I'm assuming the zip, oh, it's still, yeah, it's because of this black hole in this room. I see it's still trying to download that one. So the one you sent originally looks like it was reduced in size, came in really small. I'm guessing the second one is probably going to be the full resolution one, but it's still trying to download that for some reason. I don't know what's going on in this room.
Okay, I didn't even realize I sent 2, but I could always like screen share or something.
Yeah, I tell you, I've got it. We can look at it, but it might be better if you screen share, because I had to open it in Photoshop and magnify it, and it's a little bit blurry. So since this is having trouble coming through, why don't you go ahead and share your screen so we can see that?
Okay.
Yeah, that's better than what I had here.
Okay.
So, okay, we have an interesting subject here to start with. This is obviously, I'm guessing, some Halloween thingy.
Yeah, it's like a food bus, and there's like menus on the windows, and they just had it all decorated, all like spooky, and I thought that'd be fun to dwarf.
Yeah, I like the little Wizard of Oz legs with the ruby slippers that you can just barely see in the lower left-hand corner there.
Yeah.
Yeah, so again, it's probably a good subject matter for this type of an effect because it's kind of wonky to start with, and that just gives it a little bit more look. The trees in the upper right-hand corner, the swirls that you did up there, sort of make it look like, like it's windy enough, like the bus is going to take off or something. So yeah, I can see how you went through. You did, like, you made large adjustments in some areas and no adjustments in others, but that's kind of an interesting take on it as well, because and I like the swirl right in the middle of the spider's body too. That's kind of interesting. Yeah, again, it's a fun technique, and this kind of has a fun house look to it, almost like a fun house mirror. So just
Yeah, I
looking.
love the doorway. I think that's something I want to do on more photos, just make like the doorway look really weird.
So it's a food truck. Where was that? I've never seen this food truck.
It's Asheville, North Carolina.
Oh, okay. I was going to say, I know almost all the food trucks around here, but I have not seen that one at all. I actually had to photograph all of the food trucks for an issue of a magazine last year. And that's definitely one I would remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not much I mean, again, it's just, this is a subjective thing. I don't see any major distractions. It is a little, I would say my first thought would be, because of the angle of this bus, the way it's tilted down, it's a little strange, but then the whole image is a little strange. So that's the idea. So I can't really say that I would have, and it's off enough too that it's not just a little bit. Like I said, if you're going to be off, if you're going to run something uphill or downhill, do it enough that it looks like it's intentional. So yeah, pretty good job. Let me
Thank you.
stop that, and we'll get into bridge, and I'll put that in where it belongs. I just have the small version of it here, but it's big enough, I think, for us to see what we're doing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, we got all 7, and I can see everybody except for Jaden, but you can always use your raise your hand or thumbs up or whatever for the vote. All right, so let's vote. You can vote for your own, but you can only vote once. Let's go across from left to right. Melted butter. Okay, Eva's flowers with window. All right, Haley's bush. Haley's burning bush in the back, it looks like. We'll call it that because of the red on the trees. The peacock. I think I see where we're probably headed here. Okay. The penitentiary. Chris is all right, and then the haunted bus food truck. All right, as expected, Chris, you take the honors this week. Again, I could literally, I've got, there's something about each one of these images that I really like. I could probably throw the points around more, but if I give any of the other ones one, I'd have to give them all one because they're all, I especially like though, I think the penitentiary because of the title. I don't know if I even mentioned the title. I don't know, man. I just work here. Like, again, titles mean a lot with a photograph, and that one in melted butter with the popcorn shop. Though the titles really make the image come to life. So I like both of those, but we're going to leave it where it is for right now. Let me make sure I get that in there. Chris. All right. All right, that's all saved. Okay, let me get out of this. So what we're going to do this week is look at sort of the anatomy of a digital file, which is, some of this is difficult without being face-to-face because there are visual aids and things that are really tough for me to do this way. So let me go into, I'm going to share my Photoshop screen. Oh, by the way, I had sent a reminder today and also the link before last week's class about downloading some files. Did you guys all get those files downloaded? Okay. So if you have access to Photoshop right now, we're going to actually do this together in class. Sorry, my phone fell out of my pocket. I was hearing my dog bark like crazy during the last part of that. And when we took a break and I went in, he had somehow locked himself in the bathroom and completely annihilated an entire roll of toilet paper all over the bathroom floor. All I can say is it's a good thing he's cute because I think I would have never. Anyway, just I'm too old for this stuff. So anyway, the files that you downloaded, we're going to work on in a very specific way in this class. And then if you're able to do that along with me, well, not along with me, but after I do it, I'll have each of you share your screen of your finished shot so that I can see that, it looks the way it should look so that, you understand the technique. And then I'll give you the assignment, which is sort of an offshoot of that. So this is just, and I don't know if this was included in the images that I sent you. I may have only sent you 3. This was actually the 4th image. You may have it, you may not, I'm not sure. But I have this one open because I want to show you sort of how this file is put together. So I'm looking at my channels palette. I'm going to pull that up so you can see it right next to the image. And the RGB, which is the combination of the red, green, and blue channels together, is what creates the color image. Each channel, as I click on it, you'll see is actually in black and white, although I believe I can change that. Panel options, no, thumbnail size. I used to be able to actually show these in the colors that they were, but now I'm not seeing that. So anyway, each of these is a black and white image where the pixels are sensitive to only one color in that spectrum, red, green, or blue. And when you combine all of these 3 together, that's how you get your color image. Each of these channels, because it's reduced to only tones and not color, each of these channels is capable, each pixel in this channel, for example, is capable of representing only 256 levels of gray. So when you look at a histogram, for example, and I'll pull that up as well, and let's change this so that it shows only the luminosity values. There we go. So a histogram shows you from left to right, 0 to 255, okay, 0 being the darkest black and 255 being the brightest white. So that's 256 levels total. Well, each of these channels is capable of showing each pixel in one of those 256 levels of brightness. When you multiply the three together, and you can do the math if you want, but it's 256 times 256 times 256. And when they combine together, that means that each pixel in this image is capable of representing any one of 16.7 million colors. Okay, so that's how we get a color image. That's how we get the variety of color that to our eye looks like a continuous tone digital file, when in reality, this file is nothing more than a series of rows and columns of square pixels, each one of which can be any one of 16.7 million colors. If you zoom this in far enough, if you could maintain that resolution and zoom it in close enough, you would actually see rows and rows and rows of square pixels, each one being a slightly different color. In reality, as I zoom this in, it's just going to get fuzzy, and at some point you're going to lose it entirely. But if you can see a little bit in the face of this guitar, the variation in color that's in there, in all of this, actually, you can see a little bit of that. We're just not going to be able to get it in tight enough to see it in the actual rows. So the resolution of this file, which I'm not sure what it is, we'll look at the image size. So the dimensions of this file are 1,024 pixels by 1,536 pixels. So literally what this means is, as you go across this file line by line, or row by row of pixels, from left to right, there are 1,024 different pixels in that top row. And top to bottom in each column, there are 1,536 pixels coming down. When you multiply the 1024 by 1536, you get this 4.5 megabyte file. If actually, let's just do the math. I'll just do it right on the calculator and you'll see. So 1024 times 1536, 1,572,864. And of course, we're going to multiply that by 3 because we have 3 color channels. Now, we don't have to worry too much about all the math at this point. It's just the general concept that I want you to understand. So this image is made up of 1,024 rows and 1,536 columns of pixels. And each pixel can be a different color, any one of 16.7 million. It's showing me the height and width of this image in inches if my resolution is left at 72. If I turn this resample box off and change my resolution, let's go to 300. It didn't change the number of pixels in the image. All it changed was how they're distributed. Now, instead of only 72 of those little pixels in a linear inch, now there's 300 of them. But instead of that image being 14 inches wide, now it's only 3.5 inches wide. So that's sort of the core of resolution. We're not going to get too deep into that right now. I just wanted to kind of give you an overview of it. The main thing that we want to be aware of right now is how these images are made up of a red, green, and blue channel, each one with 256 levels of gray, and that's what gives us the 16.7 million potential colors per pixel. And just so you know, that's a JPEG file. That is an 8-bit file. If you look under the image mode in the Photoshop menu, you'll see it's an RGB color file and it's in 8 bits per channel. And that's what that means, is that each channel is an 8-bit file. And that's what we're typically working on. That's what gives us those 16.7 million colors. When you shoot a RAW file, when your camera records, if your camera is capable of recording a RAW file, that's actually a 16-bit file, 16 bits per channel. So the difference in the math is huge. Instead of each pixel having a potential 16.7 million colors, in a RAW file, it's actually over 68 billion colors. Now that sounds like a really big box of crayons, all right? That sounds like way more color than you would ever need. And in fact, 16.7 million is more than you need as long as you don't do anything to it. As long as you don't try to change the brightness, try to adjust the color or anything like that. When you start doing that, it actually starts to fall apart a little bit to where our eyes can pick it up. That RAW file, however, with 68 billion colors, you can make a lot of editing adjustments to that and our eyes are never going to see what happened. So that's just a little side story about the difference between an 8-bit file and a high-bit RAW file. All right, so let's get back to where we are going with this. I'm going to close this window. I'm going to open the 3 files that I know I sent you, and then we'll go back into Photoshop in a second. Let me just get these in the area that I want them. And then I'll go back and share that. Oops, hang on one second. I think maybe I can. Oh yeah, I can share all 3 windows. Okay, good. Okay, so I'm going to show you those 3. You already have these. There's one. Oh, it's not going to let me because I'm sharing the screen. Let me see if I can get out of this screen mode. This is one of the problems with Zoom. All right, so you should now see all 3 of those images, but you're also seeing a lot of other stuff probably. I'm not sure what you're seeing exactly, but I have all 3 of these windows side by side right now. Are you seeing those? Yep, okay. All right, so what these images are, these guitars were hung with fishing line, and I can't remember how I affixed them to the floor so that they didn't move, but I had them in a position where they were not going to move. And I photographed them 3 times and with one light. I used only one light. But each exposure, each picture, I moved that light. And so if you look at the shadows that are being cast, you see the shadows are coming from different directions. And that was done intentionally because of the effect that I wanted to achieve with this file. Let me throw that back in there. And I'm going to throw my channels back in here. All right. So here's what we're going to do. Whoops, sorry. Let me get back into that. So each one of these files has a red channel, a green channel, and a blue channel. And they're identical files except for the lighting. So this is where it gets really kind of cool and kind of interesting. What I'm going to do is pick one of these files as my base image. And then I'm going to take the red channel from one of the other files and move that into that file, replacing its original red channel with a new red channel. And then I'm going to go to the second file and take the green channel, and I'm going to go back to my base file, and I'm going to replace its green channel with the green channel from the other file. That might sound a little confusing right now, but just kind of watch me how I go along about this, and then I'm going to have you guys do it as well. So for my base file, I'm going to pick this this image on the right. I'm hoping you're seeing all 3 images and not just 2. I think I may have lost one. Let me go back in and do this again. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, now they're all there. Okay, I can see they have a green line around them. All right, so the image on the right is going to be my base image. What I'm going to do is go to the left image, select that, go to my channels palette, and I'm going to click on the red channel. And then the process is simply to select the red channel, select all the pixels by hitting Command A or Control A on Windows. And then I'm going to copy, which is Command C or Control C on Windows. So all I've done is open that first file, or I've targeted that first file, clicked on the red channel, select all, and copy. Now I'm going to go to my base file, which is the one on the right. I'm going to go to the red channel in that, and I'm going to hit paste, which is Command or Control V. Now, initially, you're going to see the image change, but it's still in black and white, so you're really not seeing much. But look at the RGB channel. Look what it looks like now. So you see where we're headed with this. Okay, so now I'm going to go to the middle image. I'm going to select the green channel, and the same technique, Command A, Command C, so for select all and copy. Then I'm going to go back to my base image, go to the green channel and paste, and now I've got a completely different looking file. There are a lot of variations that you can do with this because you can take, I took the red channel from the first file and the green channel from the second file. I could have taken the red channel from the second file and the green channel from the first file. I could have taken the blue channel from one of those. There are, I forget, I did the math to figure out how many variations there are. It's not as many as you might think. It's like 64, something like that. But there's a lot of different variety that you can come up with to create an image that looks like you shot it with all these colored gels, when in reality, it's just one single light, one simple light, which is casting shadows in different directions. And you'll notice that the shadows are broken into secondary colors. You know, these, the primary colors are red, green, and blue. The secondary colors are cyan, magenta, and yellow. And that's what you're seeing in these shadows along the bottom. I had another file, which I don't know if I sent you, which was the face of the guitars, which we'll get into after this. I just want to walk through this process first to make sure that we have the process down, and then we'll add a little technique to it. So I'm going to go back to the original. Okay, that's my original file. Let's just jump back through history. And I'm going to have you guys open these 3 files and do this process as well. So let me deselect everything, and I'll verbally walk you through it again. And this time, if you have Photoshop open and you have these 3 files open, try to follow along and do the same thing. And we'll see if we come up with the same looking file. If you don't, it just means you did something a little bit different than what I did. So I've actually got the file names that I've got left to right are Guitars 1, Guitars 3, and then Guitars 2. You can put them in any order that you want as long as we use the same files overall. So the base image, I'm going to use this Guitars 2, which has light on the face of the guitars. That's my base image. So I'm not taking anything from that. I'm taking from the other 2 files. So the first step is to go to the Guitars 1 image. And initially it'll look like that. Click on the red channel. If you don't see your channels palette, go to the window menu and just select channels, and it'll pop up on your screen somewhere if it's not already there. And then, like I said, you'll just click one time on the red channel. If you're on a Mac, hit Command A and then Command C, and that's for copy. Or I'm sorry, for select all and copy. If you're on Windows, it's Control A and Control C. Then go to your base image. Click on the red channel in your base image and hit paste. You can either go to the menu to do that, or it's Command or Control V. You should see the image change, and the thumbnail in your channels palette you should also see now has this color attached to it. Everybody with me? That is with me? If I go too fast at all, just slow me down. So then the second step, actually the final step for this image as it sits right now, is to go to the Guitars 3 image, which initially looks like that. Select the green channel, click on the green channel, Command or Control A, and then Command or Control C. Go back to the base image, click the green channel, and paste. Command or Control V. And then if you did exactly what I did, your image should look exactly like this one. Did anybody have success? Nope, nobody's having success. Tell me what's happening. Or are we still working? Jaden, you got it? So the good news is that this is all recorded. So you can watch this again later to get the steps down properly. Just out of curiosity, I'm going to back up, and instead of taking the green layer from this image, I'm going to take the blue layer instead and see what happens. Click the blue, select all, copy, go to my base image, go to the blue and paste. And yeah, it does change it. The shadows are completely different. We now have this green cast on the face of the guitars that I didn't have before. I actually think for this exercise, though, I like it the other way. So let me do the green to green. Yeah. So do we have a total mess on our hands, guys, or are you somewhere in the ballpark?
I feel like I'm in the ballpark a little bit, yeah.
So, I mean, the concept is kind of simple in that you're just simply copying channels from one document and pasting them into another one. The hard part, or the confusing part, is making sure you keep your documents separate so that you know which one you took what from. But honestly, you could take the red channel from your first document and you don't even have to paste that into the red channel. You could paste it into the green channel of the new document. There's all sorts of options that you have, and each one is going to give you a different look visually. So I'm going to let that simmer for a minute. If anybody has any success and wants to share, let me know. I'll go back to the beginning. You can always go back to the beginning and just go to your history channel, your history palette rather, and click on your original history state, and that'll take your images back to the way they were. All right, so I'm going to start again. I'm going to go to my Guitars 1. I'm going to keep it the same. Red channel, click on the red channel, select all, copy. Go to my base image, which is Guitars 2, click on the red channel and paste. Then I'll go to Guitars 3, select all and copy. Go to my base image, click on the green channel and paste. Oops, I missed something here. There we go. I do remember when I first started playing with this, how confusing it got. So I really want to try to simplify this as much as I can and not play with too many variations just yet. I'll let you guys do that on your own for the assignment for next week. The key to this is there's two things. Number one, you want to use a hard light source, a small, light source that's going to cast shadows. A really high intensity desk lamp, or something that's small in size that's going to create shadows across your image. Second thing is that your camera and your subject cannot move. So it either needs to be on a tripod or on a table or on a beanbag or something that it's not going to move between these three exposures. The only thing that should move is your light source. So as you take each of the three images, you just have the light source in a different location, and not little, like don't have one at the camera and one just off to the right of the camera and one just off to the left. Really move these light sources around, like experiment even with putting them behind or off to the right, off to the left. The more dramatic you make your shadows, the more dramatic your final image is going to be. And then you have to think about what is it that you're going to photograph. It has to be something that will actually cast a shadow. One of the coolest things I saw done was somebody did this with a keyboard, and not like one of the low-rise keyboards, but one of the, where the keys are actually pretty high, pretty deep. And they really raked light across in different directions to create very harsh shadows in between all of these keys. And it was such a cool effect because, very small footprint to work with. It wasn't difficult to do, but it created this really multicolored final image, which was pretty neat. So you want to think about, whatever you photograph should have indentations or, something raised, something that's going to just cast a lot of different shadows in a lot of different directions. Anybody getting anywhere close?
I think I got it.
Do you want to share your screen so we can see it?
Sure. Oh, it says I can't share without you closing your screen.
Oh, because I'm sharing. Hang on, let me do that. There we go. Try now.
Can you see it?
Yeah, that's it. You got it. I don't know where your channels palette is, but let me see that and just open that up a little bit so I can. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, that's it. That's exactly it.
Okay.
And it looks exactly like it should. Perfect. Great job. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this image. I'll give you guys, if you want to keep playing a little bit, I'll give you a couple more minutes to play with this, but then I'm going to take the image and go a little bit further, because obviously the assignment's not going to be to just duplicate what we did here. It's going to be to go a little bit beyond that. So we'll challenge you a little bit in that respect, but I'll give you a minute to play here. I'm going to go back into, actually, I need to open another image for this. All right, give me a second here. I hate to move too far ahead, but it looks like most of you have either gotten close or you've given up. So again, the good news is that this has been recorded, so it should be pretty simple if you need to go back once I post this and watch the process again. So let's just take it a little step further. I'm going to go back into Photoshop and select, actually, I only need to select 2 images this time. And that's the one that I just finished. Let me close the other ones up. And this new one, which is a little more of a normally lit image. Now I already have a file that I've created a mask of this, but I'm going to go ahead and do it along with, so you can watch how I'm going to do this anyway. This should be a pretty simple image to mask. I'm just going to take, actually, I might even be able to do the magic wand here and make this work, and just make sure that in the options bar, if I take the magic wand, if you look up in the options bar, there's a check mark by the word contiguous. And what that means is that when I click in the white area, it's not going to select every value in the image that has that value. It's only going to select until it meets something that's not that value. In this case, the guitars. So if I click in that area, and I may have to click more than once. Oh, because I didn't have, hang on, let me do that again. I need to shift click to continue to select different areas. My tolerance may be a little bit too low. Let's take that up. All right, I just wanted to see if I could get, and it looks like I did. If you look at this image, you can see I've got a selection around the guitars. I'm trying to eliminate as much of the shadowing as I can right now. And then I have to invert that selection because I want the guitars and not the background. So it's not a perfect selection. I can see that as I'm looking at it. I'd have to go in and refine this a little bit. I don't want to take the time to do that. I've already done it. I just wanted to show you another way to do this would be to use the quick select tool and drag around on the guitars. But let's just try it this way. So now I've got this selection. Again, remember that the camera did not move and the guitars did not move through all 4 of these exposures. They haven't been cropped in any way. So the guitars should be in exactly the same position in all 4 shots. So I'm going to take the selection that I have on these guitars. I'm going to hold down the shift key. I'm going to take the move tool. And while I hold down, and the shift key just ensures that when I drag this over onto this other document, that it places it right in the center, right where it should be. So I'm going to drag that over. You can see that it's actually moving the guitars. I'm going to drag this to my other document and drop it. Oh, I dropped it in the center and not on the guitars. Great. All right, so I have to physically move those into place, which they kind of did easily because I've got snapping turned on under the view menu. You see this adjustment that says snap. It helps things to kind of, jump a little bit better. I'm going to close up this first document because I don't need it anymore. Oh, and it jumped me out of sharing. I'm sorry. Trying to, I guess I have to do it through the menus. The keyboard shortcuts don't work when I'm in sharing mode. All right, so if you look at my layers palette, you can see that's the new layer that I just drug in. All I did was drag in the guitars. So I've still got this funky color going on with all the shadows because of the channel replacements, but the face of the guitars is lit kind of normally. And I can play with this. I can pull the opacity of that down so that I just have a little bit of that at play. You can see it still has an effect. I just have a lot of options, a lot of different things that I can do with it. I think in the version that I actually did of this file, I might have put a halo around this too. Let me go in and look for that. I'll show you what some of the finished ones looked like. So I told you there were a lot of variations. These were all the variations that I did. The top ones are just replacing different channels from different documents. And then I think near the bottom is, yeah, this is the one that I finally settled on as being the final edit. So you can see the faces of the guitars are lit. I actually brought in that halo that's around the guitars is actually just a little bit of the white background that's in that file. I allowed that to bleed through. And the selection that I made, it's actually on a layer mask. I blurred that a little bit like we did earlier in the class. Remember we talked about feathering a selection? So when I drug this image over, I just brought a little bit more than the guitars. I created a layer mask and brought that layer mask over a little bit more than the guitars and put a blur on it so that it kind of spread it out a little bit more. And so this was the finished image that I came up with. But you can see that there's a lot of different varieties just depending on which channels I brought in. And then I did one with just a little bit of a light around the sound hole. I kind of liked not doing too much on the strings because this string particularly got a cool highlight from one of the color channels. So lots of different ways to do that. This is just one technique. This is a total Photoshop technique, really, because once you've taken the photos, which are pretty straightforward. Again, in this case, I did 4, but you can do 3. You only have to do 3. You could probably do 2 and actually still get an interesting image. You just have to copy and paste a little bit more. There are several different techniques that we're going to be getting into as soon as hopefully I can hold off until we start meeting face to face, but they're very similar to this. Let me show you another one. This was done a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So I'll just walk you through these images. So again, camera's on a tripod. It doesn't move. I took one electronic flash that had a remote trigger on it. Okay, so I could move that flash around and fire it from different areas of the room. That's the only thing that changed. So in this shot, and I need to get this ordered a little bit better. Yeah, in this shot, it's just a fairly straightforward. This is more of a base exposure, just to give me an overall exposure of this room. And then I started moving it. Okay, so the next shot, which when it comes up, you'll see, is just the flash is just pointed towards that back wall. And the next one, it's moved further back in the room and kind of pointed almost a little bit back towards the camera. Then there's just this little area of ceiling. Then there's each, just going with columns here, trying to light different pieces of this room. You can see how the flash just keeps moving in each shot, lighting a different area. And then what I did was take all of these, not as channels, but as layers, and combine them all into a single document and colorize those layers. And that's the shot that we came up with. So this is actually a combination of 6 or 8 different shots. One light where the light has just been moved in from each exposure, but the camera's locked down. And we're only bringing in the area of that file. Like in this file, all I brought in was that area at the top, maybe a little bit of the highlight at the bottom, and put that all together and just did a hue and saturation colorization on each of those layers to come up with something like that. So that's another technique. We are going to be playing, that'll be one of the first things we do when we get to this point. And then there's another technique, which is a little more like painting with light, because it literally is. Let's see. All right, so let's go through them this way. So in this case, this is just a stock photo that I used. This is a backlit image of the subject. Again, the subjects aren't moving. This is done, these images are not lit with a flash. They're actually lit with a flashlight. So it's a very long exposure where the flashlight is moved around on the image during that exposure. Here's another one. Each one, the flashlight is changing if from direction. In this one, actually I did use, I'm sorry, I take that back. I did use a flash on some of these because I can see the reflection of the softbox in the wine glass and in the bottle. And then that was moved to a new location. Same thing here. Each one of these is just light sources moved from a different location. And then the final version, is that the final one? Yeah, this is the finished version where all of those images are combined together to create a technique that you can't do any other way. You couldn't light a product shot like this in one shot. You just can't do it. There's no way. I mean, you could, but my God, the complexity of it, the number of lights involved, the number of modifiers that would be required to reduce, for example, a light to just light the label of that bottle, another light to just give a highlight on the edge of the bottle. I mean, there probably would have been 15 different lights, each one with an extensive array of modifiers on it to do this. I'm just showing you these two sets of images to kind of give you an idea for where we're going. We're going to create some really fun stuff by doing these types of things. But for now, this is where we're at. And for next week, like I said, what I want you to do is to create at least 3 images. You can do a 4th one if you want to do like a base, an overall base image, something like this. It's up to you. It depends on the subject that you photograph. But the keys are, again, number 1, camera and subject cannot move during each of the exposures. They have to remain stationary. Number 2, the light source should move between each exposure. It should be a hard enough light source, meaning a small, intense light source, that it creates some very dramatic shadows. What's the other thing? And then, yeah, those were the main keys. Camera and subject cannot move. Light source must be capable of creating strong shadows. Although the third thing was light them from very oblique angles. Don't do a soft light from, you know, near the camera position or something. Use something that will, all of these images should create very distinct shadows, and they should come from different directions. So think about left, right, behind, you know, whatever, overhead, just anything that's going to create it. It all depends on the subject that you choose. So I'm going to go back, stop this. And I'm going to go through that process one last time. And I need to get my images back open. One, 3, and 2. Okay. All right, let me share those. All right. So again, I'll do it a little differently this time. Maybe I'll use the image on the left as my base image, and I'll do the green and blue channels from the other two just to see what the differences are. So if I take the middle image and I'll target the green layer, or I'm sorry, the green channel, select all and copy, go back to my base image, go to the green channel and paste. That's where I'm at so far. Then I'll go to my third image on the right, select the blue channel, select all and copy, go back to my original, go to the blue channel and paste. And that's what I come up with. Now let's just do some variations. Let's just keep going with this. Let me take the red channel. So I'll have a couple of channels from this document. I'm going to take the red channel and copy it. And when I go back to my source, instead of putting it in the red channel, I'm going to put it in the blue channel. So I get a completely different look. It's not necessarily what I like. Let's put it in the green and see what the difference is. Actually, let me back up here a second. I'll take some snapshots so we can look at the differences. All right, so that's with that. All right, so I'm going to go to my second image. I'm going to select the red channel, copy it, go back, and I'm going to paste it into the green channel. Then I'll take my third document and I'll select the red channel. This is just getting really weird. Go back to my base image and I'm going to paste the red channel from that one document into the blue channel. So it's a very similar look to what we had a minute ago. Actually, it looks like maybe that's what I did because the two no, they're not the same. If you go through them, you can see that there are differences here. So the point I'm trying to make there is that just because you're copying a red channel from one document does not mean you have to put it in the red channel of another document. That's how I would recommend you probably start, just to get the technique down. But once you do, play with it a little bit and see what you come up with. So the assignment is going to be not only to do this technique, to photograph some object or objects this way, and then combine the images by combining channels. But I want you to try to take it a step further if you can, like in the case of the base image that I had, the fourth image, and using a little part of that to bring back some normalcy to a part of the image, or use, really mess with how you combine the channels together to come up with multiple effects. I'd actually like to see at least 2 variations. You can use the same images. Okay, you can use the same images for both of those both of your finished images, but either do different channels so that we have a different color rendition, or add something to one of them that the other one doesn't have, so that they are, they're going to come out as very different looking images, but the core of it is still going to be this technique. Let me stop that. Does that make sense, at least as far as what I'm asking you to do? You will probably need to go back and run through the part of this again, the video that show, because as you start to do this, I know this is what happened to me when I learned this technique. I went back and started doing it, and it just was horrible. Like nothing was working right. And I don't remember now what I was doing. There was something in the process of moving one channel to another document that I wasn't doing right, and it wasn't working. So you're probably going to have to go back and watch a little bit of that again, just to make sure you get it right. If you stumble at all, if you have any issues, let me know. I would probably recommend that you do this not like on Thursday morning next week, because then if you run into problems, you're going to be a little stuck. I would definitely give this a shot at least earlier than that, so that if you do have some snags, you'll know how to handle them. I will try. These videos are difficult for me to get posted because it's a YouTube problem. Sorry, Haley got bumped out. It's a YouTube problem because it doesn't take very long for this video to render for the class, and then it doesn't take very long for me to upload it. But for some reason, it takes 24 to 36 hours for it to render a high resolution version on YouTube, which is why, you're not getting the link for these for a couple of days afterwards. But if you want to try it before that's posted and see if you can get it right, great. If you want to wait until the video is posted so that you have a little bit of a step-by-step, that's fine too. But I think what I really want to see in the assignment is, I think you can probably achieve a lot just by picking the right subject matter. By picking something that's interesting and then making it even more interesting by using this technique, then I think that's where I have the fun in this, in seeing you guys do something that I hadn't thought of. So I don't know if you have any specific questions. I know this technique is a little challenging, but I think once you get the hang of it, it'll be pretty easy. It's not something that I do often, so I actually had to go back and review my notes, before in preparing for the class, because I knew I would have messed something up too. So don't be, disheartened by that if it doesn't work right off the bat. It is a little bit of a challenge, but it can be a lot of fun too. All right. So anything specifically that you're like, all right, I just don't get this at all, or any issues or challenges that you might think you're going to face, let me know. And I'll see if I can help you with that. But other than that, guys, just have fun with it. I want this to be, more creative than anything. You're kind of, you've already started coming up with this little library each week, and we've only done 2 assignments for this class. So I kind of want to build a little bit of a library of really cool images from you guys. I don't know if they'll do it this year, but of course, last year nobody met face to face, but the year before that, they actually did an exhibit in the gallery on campus of a lot of the art students from different classes. And we took, I don't know how many, we had 10 or 12 images from this class that I printed and we had on display up there. So we're looking for, some cool stuff from you guys over the course of the semester. All right. If you have any specific questions, let me know either now or no, we don't have to forever hold your tongue. You can actually email me or text me or whatever. I'm always here. All right. If that's it, guys, we're going to let you go a little bit early tonight. Play with this. I know you'll spend the last 30 minutes of class actually doing this. I know all of you are going to do that. That was a joke. I know none of you are going to do it. And because of the fact that you'll forget about how to do it before you try to do it, I'll try to get the video up as fast as I can. All right, guys, we'll see you next week.